My name's Darren from Defy Adventures, and I really like to make sure that I have good quality, clean water. Even when I'm at home, I'm gonna filter my water. But when I'm getting it out of a lake or a river or something even dirtier, I wanna make sure that I have top quality drinking water. Today I'm gonna show you my two favorite water filters. One of them is the Grayl GeoPress, and one of them is the Katadyn pocket filter. And we're gonna go over the different uses for them, why we don't just have one and why one's better than the other in different cases, and also some of the limitations so that you can be best prepared when you go out on the trail or you're going on that backcountry trip. So the reason that I like these two filters particularly is I've tried a variety of filters. There's some that are a lot smaller. You can even go with just the pure water purifying tabs. But there's two reasons that I don't like using the smaller filters or the purifying tabs, and that's because the quality of water is not quite as good. The purifying tabs are putting chlorine into the water, which I just don't want to put that in my body. And the smaller filters don't get rid of all the different types of viruses that you could have in water. And that's the key thing that both of these filters promise, is that they're going to take out 99% of the parasites and the viruses so that you have the best quality water that you can possibly have. I've been on trips before, and I'm sure you've all been on holiday before, where people tell you to avoid the water or avoid the vegetables or the fruits that are washed in the water. That's because the water that we're not used to drinking in different countries or different environments can have a dramatic effect on our stomachs and our gastrointestinal system. This is what leads to a pretty miserable trip. Kind of not so bad when you're in a hotel and you have a bed and a toilet and other situations, but when you're sleeping in a tent and you have to move every day on a backcountry trip, you want to make sure that you don't put yourself in a situation where you could potentially get sick. So, first one I want to touch on is the Grayl. And the Grayl is actually my go-to travel filter. So I take this with me pretty much everywhere. Even if I'm staying in a hotel, I'm going to filter all the tap water with this, because generally the tap water in hotels in other countries is like, as we mentioned, not always the best, but this is going to make sure that it's nice and clean and I don't have to spend, you know, $5 for half a liter of water. The reason that this one is really good for that, really good for travel, is it's a super simple design. You are just going to take off the top, fill this part with water, and then the filter is the orange piece on the bottom, and you're going to plunge down, all right, and as you're plunging, okay, you're going to end up filtering that water, which we can show a little bit more of a demonstration in a minute. And then when you get to the end, you have filtered water, and you literally just drink it out of the top. Okay, so it's an all-in-one bottle and filter at the same time. There are some drawbacks to this system, which we'll go through some of the drawbacks in a minute. But for the drawbacks that this system has, we can bring in the Katadyn pocket filter. Now this is probably the premium creme de la creme of all filters. Okay, it's a really robust system, but it's also pretty simple, but it produces large volume of filtered water. And this machine, I don't know if you could tell, but it's stainless steel. Okay, it's really well made. The filter inside, which I'll open it up, is a ceramic stone, and it's got a 20-year guarantee. All right, so Katadyn stand by this. Right, they give it a 20-year guarantee, and this is not the lightest, but it's definitely the most robust system that I've ever used. The reason I would use this one over the Grayl would be because I just want larger volumes of water, and I have another vessel such as a water bottle or even a bladder where I'm going to put that water into, and I can just filter more water quicker. I do believe this filters cleaner water than the Grayl by a little bit, just purely from a personal taste perspective, but it's going to give me reliability above all else. And some of the drawbacks that come with the Grayl don't necessarily come with the Katadyn pocket filter. So as I mentioned, one of the biggest pros of the Grayl GeoPress is the fact that it's an all-in-one filter and drinking vessel. All right, so simply with this, you're going to dip it into your water, and you can see this is not the cleanest of water, okay? But when you filter this, this is going to be totally fine for drinking. So you're going to fill that up. You're then going to put the filter on top. Now, one of the biggest cons of this is the fact that when you have done lots of filtering or you're filtering dirty water, the actual process of filtering the water is not always the easiest. So the base has got a rubber, so you can place it on some rocks, and now you kind of have to get your full body weight in there. And as you go down, you can see it's not too bad here, but sometimes this can be a 2-minute process of just filtering this water. So once I've got all the way to the bottom, good. So you can see there, not a super quick process, but I only used this one unit. I filtered it. I've got some nice clean water. And it doesn't taste too bad. The other slight con to it is because it is filter and vessel in one, it's relatively big, it's relatively bulky. Trying to get this into a backpack is sometimes a bit of a problem. And you've only got about 500 mils of water that you can do at a time. So that process there, it's relatively quick to set up. But if this was all I had, I would need to have multiple water sources on my hiking. So if I was hiking along a river, I might be filtering every half an hour or so to keep myself hydrated. I've also used this in scenarios where I would use this as my main filter and I would pour the water into my hydration bladder. It might take 5 minutes or so to get a 2 or 3 liter bladder full, but that just negates the need to stop so much, all right? So the Grayl, I would give this a solid 9 out of 10, all right? I do really like it. I use it a lot for travel, airports. It's gonna be on me. I can filter the water out of an airport. I can use it in the hotels. And it's also probably not my #1 choice on the backcountry, but sometimes I've taken it if space is allowed. All right, so looking at my personal favorite filter out of these two, especially the Katadyn water filter. Now, the reason that I like this a little bit more is I can just filter a lot more water. The taste is usually a bit better, but it does come at some costs, all right? You need something to carry the water, which generally I have a bladder or a water bottle on me anyway, so it's not a huge deal. Having a bottle separate just means I can put things like electrolytes in here, which I wouldn't do that in the Grayl because that would mess up with the filter system, okay? So I'm probably always gonna be carrying a bottle anyway so that I can have my electrolytes. I'm usually gonna have a bladder so that I could drink on the move. So having the pocket filter is not such a big deal for me. And the way it's set up is you basically have this first filter, which is gonna get rid of anything major, so any of the mud or any sediment or anything like that. That's gonna filter that out straight away. And then as it comes up through into the main filter, that's where it's gonna get rid of all the microns and all the viruses and all the bacteria and things like that in there. So you're simply just gonna pop that into the water there and then put this piece in. It's a very easy pump process. So I've had some of these where as you're pumping, it gets a little bit harder, which you can see that's got a little bit harder now as it's starting to pump through the water. But we got a liter of water here, and we could probably get this done in about a minute or two, all right, and get a decent amount of water. Good, so you can see there, we've got some nice clear water. I mentioned before that it's like a ceramic, it's like a rock inside of this, which I can quickly open up and you can see as part of the main filter on the inside of this system. So here is what's going to filter it. So you can see all of the black stuff there. That's all of the mud and the sediment that's coming out of the water. All right, so that would typically be clean, all right, once I've washed it. So you can see how it's turned water that had all of this in there, all right, which is there, you can see, and got it into this nice drinking water. And as usual, that tastes a little bit better than the one from the Grayl. So I literally trust my life with both of these products. But as I mentioned, there's some pros and cons of each. The other thing I didn't mention is the cost. So at face value, you might be shocked that the Katadyn water filter is almost $500. The Grayl, on the other hand, is $125. But when you look at the product itself and how long it lasts, for $500, you're looking at 50,000 liter capacity before you would need to change any of the filter. And when you do change the filter, you're looking at a $30 change to get another 50,000 liters. The Grayl, however, you're looking at 250 liters are about 350 presses, or if the press starts taking longer than 25 seconds. So I found that after one trip in some what I considered not too dirty water out of a lake up in Northern Ontario, I needed to change the filter after a 4-day trip. All right, so I definitely didn't get 350 presses out of that. So in terms of how much this costs long term, the Katadyn filter actually works out at a way better cost per liter over the lifespan. So no matter what you do, no matter where you travel or how you travel, I recommend everybody get one of the Grayl GeoPresses. If you're not going into any crazy remote areas, this one's just gonna be good for your regular holidays, small trips, you know, even down to the local park if you just wanna filter your water. The Katadyn is gonna be good for people who like to go a little bit more off-road, off backcountry, more remote areas, and need to filter more water quicker, and also have that durability of long-term filtering for many, many years. So I hope you've enjoyed this review. As I've said, water is an essential part, one of the main survival needs of us as humans. So it's important you use this. And if you like this video and you want to get more tips and tricks on outdoor gear, outdoor tech, and just watching my adventures in general, then please give us a subscribe and like this video so that we know you enjoy the content.